artwork in this book is so great. All this stuff about vampires resurrecting the undead and having a never-ending supply of, you know, they kill somebody and they can raise them and all the graveyards. Just so cool. This haunted, spooky nightmare. How they can curse people into wolves and turn into bats and sling soul magic around and all. Oh man, all the ghosts. So cool. The zombie dragons and the skeletal hordes and the bone carts. And I'm gonna have to do something about this ability where they have 2 graveyards or grave sites on the field, and that's where they can get their legions of the undead. That's gonna be real cool. Well, I've got a lot of inspiration from here. I guess I'm gonna have to start painting these guys. Where'd they go? Just a bunch of plastic. They can't have moved. Wait a minute. Plastic is oil, and oil comes from dinosaurs. And these are resurrected hordes. Maybe they can move. I need to deal with this right now. There. Firmly buried where they belong. Wait a minute. They're dead corpses that can endlessly resurrect. I need to contain these. There we go. Finally contained. Small graveyard, but hopefully it'll do. We're just gonna lean right into this one. I immediately just took a normal thin sheet of foam and cut some 1-inch wide and 6-inch long strips out of it, and then I used a ruler and a pen to draw where the lines needed to be for in between all the bricks. I am deciding to finish off my graveyard set. I'll probably be doing this the next couple of weeks, and I'll eventually get to the pillars and the gate and stuff, but this week I only had time to do the walls, so that's what we're starting with right now. And then I used the pen to deepen the crevices so that it actually looked like grout lines, just like you would do pretty much anything else. You're just using the pen to create texture. I messed up. This was the first piece that I did. I forgot to cut through it. You'll see here in the next little spot that I actually used. Where is it? It should be up here soon. The knife to cut the lines in between the areas. There it is. Before then widening it and then making all the different brick texture. On the bottom, I lined up where I wanted weights to be because I needed these to be bottom heavy and to feel like there's a little bit more to them so they would sit sturdily on the table. Just used a little carving tool to scoop out some stuff, and then made sure I had some nuts and bolts that I put in the bottom. Made sure they fit fine. Used hot glue. Filled in a bunch, shoved it in there, made sure it stayed in place. I also then took these cocktail skewers, cut a bit off so I can make them a little shorter. I didn't want them quite so long, it was kind of ridiculously tall. I put a mini next to it, and I needed like a solid inch off. I only wanted them up about 3 inches. I decided that the wall needed a capstone piece, so just cut an inch wide. Since the foam board is like 3/4 inch thick, it was rough. It didn't have to be exactly 6 inches or 1 inch thick. It just had to be wider. But it did have to meet the end, so I cut it 6 inches, made sure it fit, tore the paper off. Once I got my knife away, don't want to leave sharp out. That paper's really good for making scrolls and stuff. Then I just used the aluminum foil ball technique and made a bunch of texture all over everything, including the brick walls, which I also
carved chunks out of and made like broken with cracks in it and stuff. Really leaned into the used graveyard look, especially since I forgot to do that on the gravestones that I made last time. I made sure to keep that in mind for texturing my stone this time. Hot glued that on top, made sure it went right to the ends, and then boom, there's technically the wall part done. And then you just need to build the fence, in which I found the middle section evened out. I think each wall has about 6 fence posts in it, and I made sure to try to get the even as much as middle as much as possible. That way, when the walls were next to each other, they'd look at least semi-cohesive. And then my big head's in the way, but I was checking there to make sure that all of the posts lined up the same way. I think they stuck out about an inch, almost 2 inches. 1 3/4 inches. Here I hold the accelerant tube, cap on. None of it got in my mouth, but mouth is a third hand when it comes to crafting. Sometimes, anyways. But yeah, I super glued them all together because I figured the super glue itself would look like welding joints, and that's pretty much how it turned out, which was pretty cool. Showing glue sometimes isn't a bad idea, especially when it's with like old fences that you want to look like, you know, messy old metal. And then I took all the pieces I made 8 total pieces, one of which I cut in half for 2 3-inch pieces for when I build a gate for this little graveyard set that I can put in between the 2 3-inch pieces. And I put all my grave sites inside of it so you can see kind of what it looked like filled up. I probably should make more fencing at some point, but the graveyard doesn't necessarily have to be fully enclosed. It can show a lot, you know, you can get a rough estimate of like the size of the graveyard if you use the edge of the playmat as like a wall. Mod Podged it to stiffen it up and seal it, and then I used some Vallejo primer because I have it. I got a bunch of it, and it's cheap enough that it doesn't bother me to use it. I know a spray can is faster, but it was storming that day, and honestly, the less I have to use a spray can, the easier it is. And then I used a dark gray to base it all, at least all of the wall, because it's stone. I was tempted to do different colored bricks. I know that's more lively, and I've done a lot of solid stone stuff. And yes, here I used scale 75, the dark steel, whatever it's called. Just because I had like a gunmetal, like a craft paint, but that stuff just does not cover. It just makes things look like black glitter. And scale 75 actually covers, right? And then I dry brushed on some gray, and then you'll see after this I dry brushed lightly some vanilla. Your basic stone technique, learned it from Black Magic Craft. But yeah, I like using the Vallejo primer because it's so cheap. It's cheaper than most spray bottles. That's pretty much it. I thought I was going to say more about that, but I guess I don't have more to say. I'm trying to think about what I wanted to say, but whatever. And then I used a black wash, a little bit of brown in it. Put it on everything, including the bars. I know that dulls down the sheen, but I wanted them to look like they had gunk layered on. Then after that, I did a final light dry brushing of some vanilla to bring out some of the chipped edges of the stone. And then I dry brushed on a lighter silver to bring back out some of the metallic shine. So then you're going to have these areas of the dark gunk, especially in the crevices around the welds and everything, where it's going to change into the browns and blacks.
let's just hope they don't make their own door. Wait a minute. There's something missing. Door? And all the corners are missing! No! No! No!